So I think perhaps we can begin. First, I want to begin by welcoming everyone to this conversation. My name is Justin Randolph Thompson, and I teach 2 courses at New York University Florence, and I'm also the director and co-founder of Black History Month Florence and of the Recovery Plan. And really, it's since the very first edition of Black History Month Florence that we've been collaborating with New York University. And we're really excited to sort of continue that relationship and to see the ways in which it can grow through the kinds of conversations that we've been having over the years. It's always helpful for us to really think about ways in which each institution can sort of represent and carry forth a certain dynamic, a certain conversation that allows us to be able to unpack some of the content that is Black history in this context of Italy. And I think it really requires all of these different audiences and institutions coming together to make something meaningful of it. And so we're really grateful to continue this tradition in this context. And Black History Month Florence was born in 2016, for those of you that don't know, and we've been developing a range of events dedicated to people of African descent across a really multifaceted network of individuals, institutions, and more. In this process this year, in particular, we've been really excited to connect with organizers in multiple cities across Italy, to think about what it means to sort of collectively organize, to come together, and to really of shared dialogue and shared activism look like. I think that we're really at the beginning of this sort of phase in the development of this work. And it's something that I really hope is sparked and made more possible as we move forward. A lot of what makes these things really possible is also just the incredible network of individuals that rotate around us and that are constantly doing work. And in that light, we're really, really happy to have with us Mackda, Ghebremariam, Tesfau, who has been a collaborator and a conversationist with us for a number of years. I think it's now the first conversation as part of Black History Month Florence, I believe, was in 2018. I could be wrong. And so it was quite some time ago, and it was really focused on some of the work that Mackda was doing, and really focused on what it meant to have a contemporary perception of the ways in which anti-racist activism is really necessary in the context of Italy, and all of the obstacles that we encounter in doing this kind of work. And it's interesting to have that kind of conversation in 2018 and to look at the ways in which these conversations can extend and grow both on a national scale through research, through the extension of this conversation, I think also through all the different sources that we've seen in the past few years that have become that much more active. And so we're particularly happy to sort of see the ways in which, I mean, Mackda is someone who's always working on so many different projects that I think I only know a very small portion of the ones that she's actually doing. And that's sort of this magical thing that when we come together, it's like, oh, there's also this and there's also that. It's like, wow. So I'm really, really excited to sort of introduce her, to introduce this wonderful group of panelists to talk about a new project, a new platform, a new idea that comes from many people who have been deeply rooted in this work for a long time. And I think that as we sort of find these synergies, we sort of find these possibilities as well, and that all of our individual experiences in this work can lead to an even stronger resonance in the work that we carry forth. So really happy to share with you tonight the work, and excited to be introducing Mackda. So I will pass over to you, who will introduce everyone else and get us started.
Thank you, Justin. You've been too kind, as always. I'm happy to be here too, and I'm happy about the changes that I saw since the first time I had, the honor of presenting my work. It was 2019, actually, but I was talking about things that happened in 2018, which was a very difficult year for Black people in Italy and for people of color in Italy. But it was also a year in which the paradigm of race critical readings of race was not welcomed as they may be today. And also thank you to the work of the people that is here with me, Black History Month, Florence, Bologna, Torino, and Rome. And also I think our project. So today I'm here with Mehret, Ada, and Elena Ndidi to talk about C.H.A.M.P.S, which is a European project that aim at contrasting Afrophobia, or as I prefer, anti-Black racism, and empower young Afro-descendant and Black people, Black Italian people, to, you know, empower them to actually become protagonists of their own narration. So history and stories are very important to us. The project started in 2021 in March. And here today we are basically from a particular activity of this project, which is really tentacular, has a lot of output and activities. And here we represent a particular work package that is kind of progettese, a slang of social project. And we in this package of activities we are doing trainings that are for Black association, and also we are doing trainings with 26 actually young Afro-descendants from all over Italy. Elena is one of them. They are very talented young people that joined us in trying to create a different narration and also create a new toolkit. This word is kind of abused, but I use it anyway, to contrast anti-Black racism in Italy. The project was, I think that because of the International Decade for people of African descent, we were able to gain these this funding to do this kind of activity, because 3 years ago, maybe it was not really possible to think about activities that targeted specifically and only Black people. But I think now we are in a space where anti-Black racism is recognized as a specific form of racism, such as Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or anti-Ziganism. And these may enable us to actually speak about, for example, the colonial continuities in this form of racialization of Black people that is also in here in Italy, specifically linked to what has been called the refugees crisis, which is actually a European crisis. So I'm very happy to present the partners of this project, and maybe some activities more in concrete. And I will ask Ada, that is the president of A Rising African, which I love to say is one of the first Black organization of, you know, we say, let me say second generation, but also people of African origins, that was born in Padova in 2015, I think. Yeah, I got it. So please.
Thank you, Mackda, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. I hope you can hear me because I can't see anything, but I can hear you. So I hope it's the same. Sorry about my connection tonight, and I hope I'll be able to deliver the general idea of the project. As Mackda was saying before, let's say that this project CHA.M.P.S, or Champions of Human Rights and Multipliers, Countering Afrophobia and Afrophobic Speech. This is the full title that we generally don't remember. And this project is the result of constant dialogue and debate between our organizations and other third sector organizations, namely, in this case, Rising Africans, as the one that I'm representing here today, Reseau, Razzismo, Brutta, Storia, Amref, Health, Italy, Osservatorio di Pavia, Carta di Roma, and CSV.net. These are various organizations in the Italian third sector. They're all non-profit organizations, and they have different missions. But what we have in common is the fact that we are all trying with our own means and our own strategies to, let's say, provide an alternative to the narration of Africa and African descendants here in Italy, and in general, the narration about diversity, migration, and participation of citizens with migrant backgrounds in the Italian society. So we've met our organizations and had the opportunity to collaborate several times throughout the years. And let's say that this project is the second version that we wrote together, all together, because we were trying to provide not an alternative, but let's say useful and technical, practical tools to fight against Afrophobia. So the project CHA.M.P.S that we've been, let's say, working with for the last year and will continue for other 2 years ahead is about encouraging leadership of people of African descent and Africans in Italy, when it's about, let's say, building their ability to contrast the narration on Africa and Afrophobic speeches. This is because we thought that when we find ourselves in situations where there is racism, or we find ourselves in institutions that are fostering a certain narrative, we normally don't have practical instruments or reference points we can use to address that issue. So we decided to create a sort of path that, as Mackda said before, it's extremely, let's say, it provides a variety of instruments that we have been developing in the past months. And we decided to give this chance not only to organizations that have been working on the topics, but also on the youth that are living in various parts of the country and that are, let's say, all linked by the sense of loneliness, a great sense of loneliness when it's about fighting against racism in one's area. So we opened the project with, let's say, an exploratory research, preliminary research, asking professionals from different sectors, especially health and well-being, welfare, communication, and education. So these 4 main sectors, asking them about their direct experience with Afrophobic speech and with Afrophobia in Italy. And then, let's say, we try to build a sort of theoretical framework within which we are actually working right now. And from that first dossier, that's the first result of the project, we built 2 different training paths, one for CSOs, so civil society organizations, the other one for young people with an African background. And the first one was about giving the organizations knowledge and, let's say, possible strategies they could use to increase the impact, the social impact of their action, and also to create a network with other organizations that are working within the same topic and finding ways to, let's say, join their strengths and build something new together. Apart from that, the other training we've been developing and that we have not started yet, at least for the practical part, is let's say, well, is directed to young activists and young people of African origins that are either born or raised here in Italy. And we decided to select 25 young people from all around the country that had particular interest in the topic, and that let's say they made clear how their personal experience and their professional background were two major elements that could help them become multipliers in their local area. Because let's say that the aim of this training is not only to provide theoretical tools or technical tools and just study it and discuss it together, is about building, let's say, champions. So building people that will be able to continue the conversation and to, let's say, widen the conversation in their local areas. So yeah, and Elena is here today because she's one of the 26 people we selected within the project. In the next few months, we have not started yet because of this emergency situation linked to the coronavirus, but we'll start in a few weeks, first online and then with physical residential trainings. We'll have the possibility to discuss through how to build advocacy actions and how to lobby within an institution, and we'll have the possibility to mix and discuss, let's say, other strategies that were developed in other European countries and share best practices that might be useful here in Italy. And altogether, by the end of the training, we'll be able to develop a campaign, a social campaign on Afrophobia and counter narration of the African presence here in Europe, together with the CSOs that were trained and with the C.H.A.M.P.S, let's say the 26 people that were selected within the project. These are the main parts we're starting with, and then of course we'll have the possibility to organize events in all the territories that will be affected by the project, because as I was saying before, the main aim of the project is to be able to, let's say, widen the conversation, foster the conversation, and be able to actively tackle Afrophobia and Afrophobic speech, not only in the major metropolitan cities in Italy, but in the small towns where, let's say, the majority of people of African origins, they are living, they are very frequently, few of them or alone in the area, and they think they are alone, and they find a sense of helplessness when it's about reacting to what they see and what they live on a daily basis. So I think that this is sort of first summary of what we've been doing and what we'll be doing in the next months. The project started officially March last year, and it's supposed to last 2 years, but it's been extended because due to the emergency situation, we weren't able to organize some of the trainings and the meetings now during the winter here in Italy. And I think that I might leave the floor to Mehret if she wants to add something that I might have forgotten during this first explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ada, and thank you to the organizer to invite me. Thank to Mackda. And what I can add, I think the indirect goal of this project is also to create a network of young Black Italians that are able to deal with the institution and and committed to try to make a real change in Italy, because I think we have to start thinking that Italy, it's not inside Europe, and we are dealing and working with the project like C.H.A.M.P.S because something changed in other countries, European countries, and we need to try to make things moving in Italy. So for me, it's a first step for us, because I'm the older of because I'm an old second generation. I'm here since 1978, so it's a very long time. And it's something that I feel strongly, because in about 40 years, nothing changed in Italy. So this is a way to create a group of people that can start making a change. And seeing that I remember the first online meeting when all of them were surprised to find highly professional people, Black people in Italy. This is something that for me was a shock, and must be a first step. And we have to think all together how and what we have to do in order to make things changing and moving forward also in Italy. So the idea is, I have to point out also that the lead of the project, it's an African NGO, Amref, because we forgot to say, but it's an Italian branch of an African NGOs. And this is an added value that we have to underline. And we are thinking already on a second phase of this project, because we have to make projects sustainable. Must be, usually the project are a kind of one shot, and we have to change also the way of thinking the project in order to have something that it's scalable. I use abuse of this word, but I think that we need to have a vision, to think as a mission also, the fighting of Afrophobia, and the creating a group of starting from the young Afro, the Black Italians. It's the first step. The second, it's to make this something that it's to standardize and to have really to push the political side of Italy to act and to create and build some policy that make our presence in Italy something that it's normal, as we say, which is not today. And it's I prefer to listen Elena, because we are inside the project and our vision could be different. The last thing that I want to underline, it's I think this project is maybe the first written with Afro-descendant people. And I think this is also an added value, because we know which are our needs, how we feel in living in Italy and in unseen people. And I think this is also something that the young people, the Afar, that we call Afar, it was an immediate reaction, and so it was something that they immediately seen without what I can say. It's it was emotionally feeling that something raised without explaining how we get to this point. So at the end, I think it's time that we have to do our side, our part, because this is also with Ada we discussed several times, because we need also to open a debate between the first diaspora and the new generation. But it's I think today we have also raised our awareness of what are our faults and what we can do in order to create something new, to change the narrative, but also the way of thinking as Afro-Italians. So, Elena.
Hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. So I guess the reply to the to this background, it starts first of all from my personal and professional background. So I joined the let's say the AFAR group, which is this integrating part of a group of young Afro-descendant people that will work with the project. Me, myself, I am Italian and Nigerian, and I've been abroad for a long time now, and now I moved back to Italy. In the past 5 years, I worked as culture manager, so I manage culture project and artistic programmer, what is called like a curator for public programs in Belgium. So I was working in an institution, the Palace for Fine Arts of Belgium, and I managed a program that was aimed at sustaining and supporting and promoting Africa creativity and creativity from the communities of people of African descent in Belgium and in Europe. And it was a great experience. I actually had the chance to work closely with the communities in Belgium, the African communities in Belgium, and working directly with organization, activists, and artists. And the aim of the whole project was trying to change the narrative, as we want to do here in Italy, and promote a more, say, contemporary representation of what our society is today, and also trying to bring back this ancient racist values, not just in society, but also within the institutions. And I think culture is such a powerful tool, has this soft power to actually achieve this kind of effective change, and that we're trying to achieve here in Italy. So it was a great experience, and this closeness to the Belgian diaspora community helped me to understand a lot of the dynamics within communities, Afro-diasporic communities in Belgium and also in Italy. So here it sparked my need to go back to my country, go back to Italy. And that's why I moved to Rome, and to do what I was doing in Belgium, but in Italy. So there was also a need to trying to reconnect, to get strengthen this connection and reconnect with my community in Italy, and take part in the fight against racism and institutional racism, and address Afrophobia in my context. So I applied to C.H.A.M.P.S AFAR group, and I joined the AFAR group. And I'm really happy and grateful for this. And I think it's such an interesting project, an important project in terms also of formation of my generation. I mean, and also the next generation, which is Gen Z. I'm not that young anymore. It's a small step towards, well, first of all, I think there's the idea of networking and trying to, you know, trying to reinforce the idea of community, because I think there's, well, I think in Italy, we're still a bit behind what is a diasporic community, because, you know, many complex elements. I mean, there's the historical part side. I mean, we didn't have this, we have a recent, let's say, flow of migration, and for the diversity of this flow of migration, within the flow of migration, and for you know, the geographical aspect as well. I mean, it's very hard to try to form this cohesion from north to south, and also to trying to find our culture, because I think we're not there yet. I mean, I don't know, we don't have this kind of, let's take, for instance, the African American culture, right? I mean, there's this strong culture where people can actually recognize themselves in. And I think we're still working in that, we're still working that step. So yeah, I think the fundamental step is trying to find this community, trying to find this cohesive community, and to find a national voice in terms of, you know, advocacy at the institutional level. And in that sense, I think the project is really helping. I think that it's we need to try to get to the same level of institution to address this institutional racism, because this is something I also saw in the Belgian context. I mean, they had this huge work before in terms of community, and then they managed to actually get to speak at institutional level, political level. They were in the parliament, they were well, there are many parliaments in Belgium. So they have this really strong voice. And yeah, I think the project is helping, but as Mehret said before, you know, projects have an end. So I think that at some point we will have to do it by ourselves, fight our fight by ourselves. And how can we do that if we don't have a voice, right? So I think that these kind of projects are good in terms of mediation. And I think institutions are fundamental in this, let's say, mediation role. And they must be actually allies to our fight, and they must take part in the fight in somehow bring attention to these kind of issues, right? Tackle these issues at institutional level, because I mean, I don't know, we saw recently in TV, our TV, that, I mean, institutional racism is not addressed by institutions yet. I mean, they're not yet there. They don't even recognize the problem. So bring attention to these issues, and then trying to bring this point on the institutional agendas in terms of political agendas, and other institutions, also educational institution and culture institution as well. And yeah, so prepare the field and trying to exploit the privilege they have, right, to be allies of this fight. And because it's very hard. I was working in an institution as a Black person, a Black woman, and it's tiring. There's a lot of work to do, and I think we need, you know, we need this help from whoever wants to take part on supporting the fight. So yeah, I don't know if I need to go on C.H.A.M.P.S, but yeah, for now I found amazing people. Really, what Mehret said, it's true. I mean, I was very surprised in meeting these 20 5 other colleagues and from all over countries. And this is also something that the project is trying to do, I think, trying to reduce these geographical distances. And it's good that we all have our professional background, but we need still training and we need formation in terms of advocacy. And so yeah, I don't know if we have questions or yeah, I can go on.
Yeah, maybe I can ask a few things. I mean, first off, thank you all. I mean, everything that you've shared is really incredible. I was familiar with some of the layers of the project, but I always think that really hearing firsthand accounts of the ways in which things are being framed by each of you individually is so incredibly rich. And I think that's what the coming together really is about. I think what I can do, I know that we don't have that much time, but I want to try to maybe ask a question of each of you based on some of the things that you said, and I'll just ask all of them now so that each of you can kind of take that time to really maybe reflect, and then we can kind of maybe try to be as quick as we can in responding to give space also to the audience's questions and not hog I don't want to hog the mic, but I do have a lot of questions that were stimulated by it. And I think the first one, in talking with Mackda, this is something that comes up fairly frequently, is the conversation around Afrophobia. And I think that you were saying that you prefer anti-Black racism. And I know this is a very simple, maybe, distinction, but it's actually a fairly complex one in terms of the significance of it. So I wonder if you could talk maybe a little bit about why that preference and what that language actually speaks to, where it comes from, and all of that. It seems like maybe something that would be good for you. And then Ada, I mean, you spoke about this sort of link that has linked by the sense of loneliness. That was a phrase that really struck me. And I think that there's a way in which, that we understand how precious coming together is in spaces. When we see each other in a room and we start to have a conversation, that's when we kind of recognize sometimes how profound that loneliness actually is. And the power of being in the space. But I think one of the things that you said that I'd like you to maybe unpack a little bit, you talked about the role of personal experience and professional background as really being these key elements that come together. And, because that's so much about like all of these different positionalities, different ways of being, different reflections on the context. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the overlap of that personal experience and professional background can be as tools. So the way in which those provide access to really thinking together. And then Mehret, you mentioned a word that I'm always wondering about because it's a word that comes up often, and it's you were talking about the second phase of the project being to lean into sustainability. And I think it's sometimes and it's very important for us to sort of speak to what we mean. Like, so what would a sustainable version of the project look like? Does that mean that the people that are involved actually carry forth the work on their own? Does that mean a certain kind of investment in that work? Does that mean an institutional collaboration that's different? So maybe if you could talk a little bit about what you mean by sustainability in that context. And then Elena, I think that I'm thinking about the, well, first off, your experience of sort of spending time outside of Italy and then coming back in this moment is something that I've heard from a lot of people. And I think, there's an interesting effect. I don't know that you returned in part because of the pandemic, but I know that the pandemic brought a lot of people back to Italy. And somehow that returning was also coupled with a sort of desire to really be involved in speaking to the realities from which, we come from. And I think that I'm interested in, you were talking specifically about culture as a sort of tool in combating anti-Black racism. And I think that dimension is something that is maybe under-acknowledged, little value that tends to be given to culture at large. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about why culture is such a good tool for that. And I think I'm going to give you a little subtle shift, because I think you also talked about really working towards cohesion and finding our culture. So what does it mean to use culture as a tool as we seek this culture, right? There's like this searching part of it that seems really intriguing. A last note, I know you were saying that, projects come to an end and, then we have to kind of step on our own. But I think that some of the beauty of a project like this is the idea, establishing the idea that once we're in a room and we look across at each other, we're not on our own as we move into it. So sometimes just that acknowledgement is enough to really give strength and to provide those sources of where to look, right? So that once the project is done, the project is never done, right? Like we kind of can just carry on. So I'm sorry if I threw a whole bunch of questions into here, but I'm wondering if maybe this is a good way to sort of tease out of each of you a little bit more.
Okay, thank you, Justin, for your question. And I want to start by saying about what you were just saying, that yeah, networking is a value of the project. And I too think that during times we understood we were not alone. That's why we are here, because when we had to organize the trainings, I called you asking for a safe space where to do these trainings, and you offered the Black History Month, the recovery plan spaces, and this is the kind of acts that actually deconstruct a system that is based off an alienation of Black forces, people of color in general, I would say. But regarding your question, so I wanted to say thank you in front of everyone. Regarding your question, so it's very simple for me why I don't like to say Afrophobia and why I have to say it, because this is the official European language. But language is a place of struggle, and we keep on the struggle. I don't like the concept, the whole concept of phobia. I think it psychologizes and moralizes and individualizes problems that are actually, as Elena was saying, structural, institutional. And I think it is very clear, for example, in Italy, we don't have any special commission on racism, on structural racism or institutional racism. We have a commission on hate crimes and hate speech. So, of course, hate crimes are a problem. Hate speech is a problem, but I think they are the tip of the iceberg of a whole culture. And this culture is not just symbolic, is material. So it's actual forces that value, that optimize anti-Blackness. So I prefer this term to make it explicit. This is part of the fight we are engaging with. So that's my answer. That's all I have to say about that.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Ada?
Okay, I'll try to answer starting from my personal experience. I was born in Nigeria, but I grew up in a small town close to Treviso in Venice, in the northeast of Italy, and in what we can define as a periphery, small town where there's like no one around. And my family was one of the, I think, 3 families of African origins in the area. I was the only one at school, around with my friends, everywhere. And I thought that watching Italian TV and seeing no one like me, no one around me, no one in TV, I thought I was the only one. I thought my family was unique and special in a certain way, because all the Africans I saw on TV were either in other countries, or if they were in Italy, they were like people with recent experience of migration, so that hadn't acquired, let's say, linguistic competencies to express themselves. So I said, okay, but why are Africans in Europe like this? So we must be special if we are not like this, if we speak the language, if we are part of our community. And then everything that was happening to me, like let's say the northeast region of Italy is where the far right wing of politics is. And everything that was happening to me, I had no knowledge of the topic to be able to understand it and address it or overcome it. It was like impossible. And when growing up, I went to university and I moved to Padova. That's a bigger city where there are a lot of international students from Africa. And then I realized that I was living in a sort of lie. I was not unique. I was not special. I was just one in a million, like literally 1 in a million, because there are over 1 million of young people with other backgrounds here in Italy. And so I found out that my experience gave me, let's say, a certain preparation. But my experience alone was not enough to address the topic and overcome it. I needed to study. I needed to learn more about, let's say, how racism can manifest in different sectors, what is structural racism, what's the definition of what I was seeing, of what I was living, and so on. I started conversating with other people I met at university. We started studying together. We created our own safe space where we could discuss it. And that's how Arising Africans was created, because we decided we needed our space where we could discuss and create our own strategies. And so we started to mix our experience on the one hand with what we were learning on the other hand. And with those two elements combined together, we were able to promote and propose our own solutions. We said, okay, we have this experience. We're all born or raised in this area, so we know what we are talking about. We also know, let's say, the origins of the phenomena we are addressing. We know that if someone says this certain sentence, it's because that person is reproducing a certain line, let's say, of racism. And so now we can also talk to the younger generations that are still affected by this. They are still attending schools and they have no directions for now. But before that, before sharing that experience and acquiring new tools, I could have been of no use to other people, because I was the first person that was internalizing the hurt, the violence of racism, and say, okay, maybe it's me, maybe I'm just overreacting because everyone is saying that I'm overreacting, so it must be true. Or maybe I think like this because, yeah, I have no one to follow, so I'm just this weird girl that was raised where there's no one. So this is my view. So I think that those elements are the ones that we're also looking for in the project. We weren't looking for people coming from the periphery. We're looking for people that had, let's say, followed a certain path, that were conscious about what we were trying to convey as a message. So they had their personal experience, but they were also trying to learn and become, let's say, multipliers of a real anti-racist talk and anti-racist narration in Italy.
Thank you so much for that. Fantastic. Mehret?
Sustainability. Well, I think the project is one way to make revolution or start doing revolution, but it's also a message of possibility. But if we want really to do a revolution, we need to work for a self-determination, first of all, in terms of idea, in terms of financially speaking, and create a strong group that is able to sit around the table with all the institutions, with a clear voice. Because Elena said before also that we need to have our voice heard by all the stakeholders of the system. And for me, sustainability, it's a key point, because it's also a way of raising the awareness of our power and creating a strong network that it's like a kid. It's born, you feed, you take care of education, pass the value and so on. But at the end, your goal and your being the love that you pass to the son or to the kid, it's to see the kid taking their own way. So we start with the project, but we have to work to define and to find and to take our own way to get the point where we will be confident on being here. Today it's not. And to see that we have the right to be in Italy as Italians.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Before Elena intervenes, if anyone has any questions, I just wanted to mention that you're welcome to put those into the Q&A so that we can attend to them right after. Elena?
Yes. So your question, culture as a tool, culture and arts are powerful tools, and because I think they can tackle these important issues in other ways than, you know, activism, and then there's also the the blurred line between artists and activists and artivists. But in some terms, like the visual way, it's, let's say, just simply is more fascinating, and it's a way to learn actually a lot without knowing you're learning as well. And it's I think it's something that it's more sensitive and can touch, actually people can be touched by this, the contact with this artistic scene, and they can understand better some parts of maybe our cultures, and they can learn something. And I think anti-Black racism also rises from the ignorance of around our culture. So I think these kind of initiatives are very important and very strong tool indeed, and they have not been given that much importance indeed. So in terms also of fundings, it's always so complex to promote this kind of events. That want to be part of the fight, anti-racist fight. And the importance of culture, why seeking culture, I think it's just the importance of opening up the dialogue among ourselves, among our people, and finding ourselves as a community through these conversations that we must have. And we have a lot of examples coming from outside, and I do believe that we don't have to just copy and paste, right? We need to copy, and yes, sometimes, but we just need to find our way. So culture movements are very important. There's a lot of things going on, and I have a lot of admiration for what Black History Month Florence and is doing, and there's a lot of things going on in Italy, I guess. The thing maybe a little critic, I just joined another organization, which is Griot Magazine and Spazio Griot, another platform that seeks to be like a nomadic space for representation of African people of African descent cultures. And I don't see that much of a cohesion. So I think that's what I was saying. I would go back to my first point. So I think, I call for togetherness in our country. I call for community, the idea of community, there's a lot of benefits in working together, and there's a lot of potential in working together in terms of visibility and strength. And that's, and we have a common goal, so why not just let's do it together and we will do it better and we have more impact. So, so yes, this is also a bit of a call out to to people who are listening.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And actually that sort of call for cohesion, for coming together is actually so important. And I know that, I think that actually the network that this talk represents is about many people that are working and sort of looking across at each other, working, and then thinking about what are those strategies for us actually coming together. And I think that it's always interesting, also with Mackda, I've looked at all the projects that she's involved in, and we're of course always working on 1,000 projects. And we always say, like, how do we find that time, right? How do we press pause and find that time to actually come together and just spend time thinking, right, without necessarily producing some preconceived idea, but just sitting together and thinking? Because I think that that's a time that a lot of times as organizers we don't really afford ourselves, because the needs and deadlines of so many things that we're involved in seem like they're ever demanding. And so I think it's definitely a very important call, and certainly something to think more about in terms of how we can spend time together. I know that myself, I'm always looking to a lot of the work that's happening across the nation. I'm always looking at Ghebremariam. I'm always looking at all the things that are happening across the country, and trying in the ways that we can to shout out and to sort of make sure that there's more awareness, more at least a shared audience, right? If nothing else. And I think that's really, really important. Yeah, so I don't know if there was any questions. I don't think any questions popped in the Q&A, but I think that maybe that's, we can give it an extra second. But I think that, also one of the things we've been really working on, and I think this is, we'll call it a more personal call out too, is, the whole initiative of Black History Month Florence was born just with the idea of creating a network of communication amongst each other and finding ways to sort of have all these different partners or institutions or individuals creating things that can be understood under a single umbrella. That's a very broad umbrella, but it's one that I think has a different level of strength, because as we've seen this year, we're so excited to be collaborating with Torino, and for them to have created this incredible program, completely autonomously, but to have that sort of perception and understanding of what it means to insert that in together with all these other organizers, right? So that in this moment we can look at all these cities and say, look, we're all pushing, right? And this push is part of a consistent in a fight. We talk to each other. I think it's also just saying that sometimes we talk to each other, right? We know each other. And these are really important acknowledgements, I think, that really speak to the power that we have. When we join each other in spaces and look across the room, I think we understand that power so much more, because we know that each one of us is capable of doing all these things. And so when you join all those things together, some of the sustainability that Mehret was talking about maybe comes about. Maybe that's what it looks like. Maybe it's about each of us being able to give what we can when we can, and being able to really, pull together whatever that resource is, maybe combined, it becomes something really, really meaningful, So yeah, definitely. Thank you for making that call out. It's one that I definitely try to attend to. So I guess if there's no other questions, I mean, we've arrived at...
Can I add?
Please do.
On the last point that you and Elena mentioned about the community, I think in Italy we need to work on, we don't see ourselves as a community. And there is this very heavy competition, while we have to start looking as a community and sharing the professionality, but also the audience, as you said. This is a key point. If we want to grow, we have to start looking ourselves as a community. This is something that, again, with Ada and probably also with Mackda, we discuss a lot about this, but this is something that it's that damage the community. It's a must. If we need to change things, we have to start from ourselves and start looking as a community and have also the awareness of our power in terms of politically and economically. We never see ourselves as a economical power, but we, as a Afro-descendant today, I think if we don't have the data, but I'm sure that we have also this point, and if we start looking ourselves as a community, we can try to push and force also in terms of strategy and political action, also the Italian institutions. But if we are going without a single umbrella, I think we will be here talking about the same thing for the next 100 years or more.
Yeah, thank you for that follow-up. And Mackda was so polite that she has her hand up in here. Go right ahead.
Now, I just wanted to say, well, about what you were saying and what Mehret and Elena and Ndidi were saying, that I think the point is care as self-care and community care, and we need to define what's the point of our care, what our care revolves around, because I know for the African American community, it's sadly easier to go back to a common event that kind of built the resistance of the community against the sort of racialization that started with slavery. It is different. So Elena talked about different communities and different ways in which the diasporas come together. And in Italy, for a long time, we represented ourselves as nationalities, as specific groups, so Nigerians, Eritreans, and you know, I think that recognizing as Blacks is kind of a step made by people that, like us, is basically born or raised here and experience something that they relate to an experience that is actually very common. I just wanted to say that this is not something that pertains only to the Black community. Next month would be there would be the week of anti-racism around the date of the 21 of March, like every year. And this year, UNAR, so the National Office Against Racial Discrimination, that is part of the Minister of Equal Opportunity, dedicated this week to Moussa Balde, who was a man that committed suicide in a center for refoulement, and after suffering heavy traumatic experience. So I think what happened to him, it's something that relates to the Black condition today in Italy, that takes together at the same time experience like the one that Ada narrated before, and things that are actually happening right now in the Mediterranean, in around our borders, from Ventimiglia to Trieste. So what I wanted to say is that we have we have maybe a layer of difficulty, a new layer, different layers of difficulties, and one would be to find community among all of our differences that are really deep. That are really deep. Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, you know, one of the things that I wish I had this quote really right here, but I don't. But anyway, I believe it's a Bell Hooks quote that says that it's about our differences, and it's about the fact that it's not our differences that actually divide us; it's our incapacity to celebrate those differences. And I think that that's something that is particularly relevant and valuable to us, to really think about the value of those differences and coming together. And I think that that's, you know, when we're talking about bringing together personal and professional experiences, that's the value of those differences, right? That we can all come in the door and bring with us something that can contribute to the common conversation, to the common cause. Yeah, with that, I think we'll just close and thank all of you for sitting here with us. Thank you all of the panelists for your contributions, and certainly thank you all for your ongoing work, which I'm very happy to be in touch with and to follow. And I'm really, really looking forward to welcoming all of you to Florence. And, you know, maybe this is a way to sort of somehow introduce you to a community here in Florence. Really grateful for NYU Florence is hosting this event. And I would signal for the next 2 weeks, there will be another event on Wednesdays. We've sort of plugged these Wednesdays so that next week we have Ernest Hill talking about Soul of Nations, and, you know, the work that he's been doing. Then we have Daphne DeScinto, who will be talking about some of the film work that she's been doing. And, you know, maybe that's one way to talk about culture as a tool, right? And sort of the activism that's embedded in that work. Please join us for those. And of course, the program of Black History Month Florence is really, really absolutely chock full. I've lost track, and I'm not supposed to lose track. I invite you all to sort of take a look at that program and follow it. And, you know, also, you know, in the case that you can't be a part of those conversations, I think, you know, one of the things that's beautiful is that every year this just comes back, right? And so in case you don't have time to organize and be a part of things now, it's like, you know, what can you do next year, right? Because this is how the network grows, this is how the events grow, and this is how also the reflections that we're able to encompass in this work grows. Yeah, thank you all. Have a really wonderful evening. And thanks again to the panelists, especially thank you to Lucia and the tech support, which is really, really smooth and seamless. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.